Jesus was showing us what true love looks like, what leadership looks like. To the Roman soldiers, leadership was about power. To Jesus, it was about love, about serving others.
Good morning and welcome to CT Brandon. We are excited for this morning because we've got a really great message from one of our associate pastors, Pastor Charles, and I know that you are going to be encouraged, you are going to be challenged, and it's going to be great for all of us. So we're going to do that, but then stick around because I want to talk to you about Easter, which is coming up right after the message.
Have you ever found yourself stressed out over a decision? Maybe it has to do with your family or friends or school, work. You have to make a decision and you don't know what to do. We all face decisions every day. How many opportunities today did you already have to make a decision, maybe to release your anger on someone or something? I know I had plenty. Like, why can't slow traffic just keep right? Is it so hard? I think if we listen to the still small voice in our hearts, the one that sounds like love, we'll find that those decisions, those situations go a lot better than if we don't. See, Easter is just around the corner. A couple more weeks, and one of the most exciting and important holidays will be upon us. Easter dinners, egg hunts, there'll be bunnies and carrots everywhere, and Jesus everywhere. It's going to be wonderful. All of this to remember that Jesus died and rose again. If you're new here, welcome here. My name is Charles. I'm one of the pastors here at CT, and thank you so much for choosing to spend some time with us. We'd really love to get to know you, and so if you haven't already, would you just go over to our website and click I'm New? The link is just in the description below. We've been going through the book of Mark. The book of Mark in the Bible is this letter written by a guy named Mark who was a friend of Peter. Peter was one of Jesus' best friends and followed along closely with him. See, Peter would tell Mark about the things that Jesus said, the things that Jesus did, and that happened to Jesus. Then Mark would write them down, kind of like a series of short stories, and put them all together, and they were addressed to early Christians in Rome and the Roman area that were facing a lot of unrest. They had civil unrest. Jesus had warned of wars and rumors of wars, and this was happening. They also had unrest in their churches. They were fighting one another. They were also persecuted for their faith. And Mark was encouraging them and reminding them of the foundation of their faith, Jesus. It's important to keep this in mind, I think, when we're reading through the letter. It's not written to us, but we can still say that it was written for us. There are still things that we can learn and observe in this letter and in all of the letters that we see in the Bible, in the scriptures. Things are getting real in the crucifixion story. Jesus has been hauled before the religious leaders. He's being mocked by them. They blindfolded him and hit them. This is a little bit of the backstory about what's going on. It was really demeaning towards Jesus. Then Jesus was brought before Pilate. Pilate said he couldn't find anything wrong with Jesus, but the crowd continued to put pressure on Pilate. And Pastor Michael talked a little bit about this last week, so make sure to check out that video. But how Pilate up to this point had a bit of political immunity because one of his best friends was high up in the food chain in the Roman political scene, but that friend died. So now Pilate's kind of on his own. He has to watch what he does. He can no longer just do whatever he wants. He wants to keep his place of authority, so he's got to do things to keep it. He gives them the option of choosing between Barabbas or Jesus, and they chose Barabbas. They chose someone who led rebellions of violence and murder instead of someone who was leading with love. The gruesomeness in the crucifixion gets real in this part. Jesus is flogged, he's whipped and handed over to the Roman soldiers. He is undergoing so much pain at this point, I can't even imagine. Flesh is ripped off his back because this type of whip they used, it had pieces of metal and bone on it that would rip or really flay pieces and strips of skin and muscle off of him. You see, the Roman soldiers were really good at destroying the human body. So then they took him to the governor's headquarters and they began to mock and beat and belittle Jesus. That's where we pick up our journey through the book of Mark today. It's in Mark 15, 16 to 20. Words will be on the screen if you want to read along. Says that the soldiers led Jesus away into the palace, that is the praetorium, and called together the whole company of soldiers. They put a purple robe on of them, twisted together a crown of thorns, and set it on him. They began to call out to him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Again and again they struck him on the head with a staff and spit on him. Falling on their knees, they paid homage to him, and when they had mocked him, they took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him, then led him out to crucify him. It says they dressed him in a purple robe. They wore these thorn branches into a crown. They saluted him, taunted him, "Hail, King of the Jews." In the the letter of Matthew wrote saying that they gave him a reed. It says in Mark, a staff, and they gave it to him like a scepter, and that's what they took out of his hand and beat him with it. One of the commentaries I read this past few weeks talks about the irony that Mark presents in his letter. An example of this would be the irony of the religious leaders blindfolding Jesus, saying, "Prophesy to us, prophesy who hit you." And at the same time, out in the courtyard, Peter is denying that he knows Jesus, a prophecy coming true that Jesus just gave earlier. The reader would have known this. The people in the story wouldn't. But so now back into our story, the reader would have known who Jesus was, the King of Kings, the Messiah. And we have the soldiers putting a purple robe on him associated with royalty. They wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head. Rulers of that day would have this wreath adorned with leaves as a symbol of position, of power. They saluted Jesus, "Hail, King of the Jews," a very common salute, except it would be, "Hail, Caesar." They took a knee before Jesus, a common response to do to someone of authority when someone of authority was before you. The soldiers had no idea. They were just doing what Roman soldiers are supposed to do. But here they had the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. The Mark's readers had that advantage of knowing it. We have the advantage of knowing it. So we see the irony of how they treated Jesus. The actions towards them. He was royalty. You could also say there's irony in how Jesus reacted to all of this abuse. The mental and physical pain must have been overwhelming. Jesus could have very easily put a stop to it all. He has the power to create the universe, but he does not use that power. Jesus is showing us what type of culture he came to create versus the culture that was on display in the world at the time. Jesus was showing us what love looks like. To the Roman soldier, being in charge was a place of power, a place where you could hold that power over people. At another point in Jesus' teachings, a guy named Matthew we referenced earlier, he records Jesus saying this, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, to give his life as a ransom for many." Jesus was showing us what true love looks like, what leadership looks like. To the Roman soldiers, leadership was about power. To Jesus, it was about love, about serving others. Jesus has all the power, but instead of lording it over them or over us, he serves us all by suffering through this torture and then going to the cross willingly. Jesus is showing us that we need to listen to that still small voice, the one that sounds like love. Jesus could have at any moment stopped it all, but he chose not to. He chose love. And what bigger act of love can you see in history than Jesus laying down his life for all of humanity? One of my favorite verses is Romans 5:8, and it says, "While we're still sinners, Christ died for us." While we were sinners. Now, before we get into who's a sinner, you, sinner, not a sinner, everyone's a sinner. Everyone is a sinner. We've all sinned. What this verse is saying is even when we reject Jesus, even when we do bad things to other people, even when we're doing evil, he chose to die for us. It would be pretty easy for me to lay down my life for my family. Let's say someone broke into my home and says, "My family or you?" "Me." "No problem. Me." One of my good friends, them or me? No problem. I can do that. Me. Let's say someone who's really, really nice, like maybe like a really good person like your grandma or something like that. Who would you pick? You or your grandma? I think it's an easy choice. Now think about someone who's done something mean to you though. Someone that you're going to have to think a little longer about, right? Like, come on, let's be real. Probably going to decide them. But for Jesus, he was like, yes. No hesitation. Take that as a sign to recognize that in those moments when you think that you're not good enough for Jesus, that's not true. You could be in your darkest moment, your lowest of lows, doing the evilest things that you can think of, and Jesus still loves you and considered it worth dying for you. That's pretty amazing. That's love. And that's why we need to listen to that still small voice, the one that sounds like love. When we're faced with difficult situations, maybe relational problems, when we're faced with what do we do, listen to that still small voice, the one that sounds like love. The next time you're about to interact with someone who's different than you, remember to listen to the still small voice, the one that sounds like love. The next time you're about to interact with someone that believes something different than you, remember to listen to that still small voice, the one that sounds like love. Now I challenge you today in your own life. Is there a relationship? Is there a person? Or maybe there's a group of people that you can think of that you can remember interactions you've had with them in the past, or maybe it's something that's happened currently that did not or doesn't look like love. So my challenge to you is, if it's possible, to go to them, to ask forgiveness, to say you're sorry. Ask them, will you forgive me? And you know what? They might not. And that's okay. Maybe you've got a closer relationship you can think of someone that you've done something to. Listen to that still small voice, the one that sounds like love. Or maybe you can think of someone that has done something to you, a relationship. Maybe if it's possible to approach them about it, but if it's not, to maybe forgive them in this moment. Forgive them for what they've done, not for them, but for you, because it frees yourself from any hate, and you can then start the journey of healing. Maybe there's not opportunity for that person to approach you, or maybe they just don't want to. Maybe this is a great opportunity for you to start the journey of healing by forgiving them. And if you're the person who did it to someone, it's a great opportunity to start the journey of healing for both of you. So no matter what decision is placed before you today and throughout this week, I challenge you to listen to that still small voice, the one that sounds like love. Can I pray for you today? God, I just pray that in every decision we have, every opportunity to interact with other people, you would help us listen to that still small voice, the one that sounds like love. Thank you so much, Jesus, to be willing to go through all this pain and torture for us, to die on the cross, to rise again, all for us. Thank you so much for being love. And may we observe how you act and interact in the scriptures and do the same in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Hope you have a wonderful life. I hope you have a wonderful life. And also have a great day and have a great week. We'll see you in the next one.
See, I told you that you were going to be challenged and you were going to be encouraged this morning. I didn't lie. Money back guarantee, didn't need to use it. So one of the things I want to talk to you about is Easter. Easter is coming up in a couple of weeks. Next week here at CT Brandon is Palm Sunday, and I'm excited about that. I've got a message I've already prepared that I can't wait to share. And then the week after that is Easter. So both of those services, we've got baptisms happening. I understand that the Easter service is already full, but we've got spots available for baptism on Palm Sunday. And if there's more that need to be baptized, we'll add it into the Ascension service the week after, and it'll be great too. But I want to encourage you, if you have not been baptized, come and talk to us. Send us a DM, pick up the telephone, and let's talk about it, because if this is the next step on your journey of faith, we want to make sure that we're helping you with that. So baptisms are coming up. And guess what else we're doing Easter Sunday? Easter Sunday only, not Palm Sunday, but Easter Sunday, we're going to do breakfast before the service. So come early, come hungry. We've got pancakes and sausages and all that kind of stuff to have a little bit of extra time together. It's going to be fantastic, so you don't want to miss that. And if Calvary Temple, CT Brandon, if we are your home church, even though you're at a distance this week, we want to encourage you to give. There's a couple of options that'll pop up. And even if you just go to our website, we make it very, very simple. And if you're a member, we want to encourage you to be tithing and keeping up with all of that stuff. All of the work we do in the community, all of the work we do here spiritually in the house, it can't happen without you because we are a community that works together. So until next time, have an amazing week, keep fit, and have fun.